Would you swallow a worm to lose weight? In 1906, a woman opened a tiny envelope that promised the impossible. No diets, no exhausting exercise, no starvation, just one capsule, and the pounds would melt away on their own. Inside was something alive. Not medicine, not science, a parasite. And for a brief, bizarre moment in modern history, people willingly infected themselves with tapeworms in pursuit of beauty. The advertisements looked elegant, almost sophisticated. Slim women in tailored dresses smiled beside slogans like "Eat what you want" and "Reduce without effort." But hidden behind the glamorous language was one horrifying truth. Somewhere inside the human body, a living creature could grow up to 30 feet long, feeding silently in the dark. And the most disturbing part? People knew exactly what they were doing. At the beginning of the 20th century, Western society became obsessed with thinness in a way it never had before. During the Victorian era, fuller bodies had often symbolized wealth, fertility, and comfort. But as industrialization transformed Europe and the United States, beauty standards changed with terrifying speed. Fashion magazines, department store catalogs, and early Hollywood films introduced a new ideal. Narrow waists, delicate silhouettes, controlled appetites. Suddenly, body size became moralized. Thinness was no longer just attractive. It was presented as discipline, elegance, even superiority. And wherever insecurity grows, someone eventually finds a way to sell a cure. By the late 1800s, newspapers across America and Europe were already flooded with dangerous miracle weight loss products, arsenic pills, mercury compounds, thyroid extracts, cigarettes marketed specifically to women as appetite suppressants. Some doctors openly prescribed substances that today would be considered poison. But few methods became as infamous as the so-called tapeworm diet. The exact origin is difficult to trace, because many companies operated secretly or under false names. Historians still debate whether fully intentional tapeworm capsules were ever mass-produced exactly as later legends described. But medical journals, newspaper reports, and documented cases confirm something deeply unsettling. People absolutely did attempt deliberate tapeworm infections for weight loss, and the idea spread because, in a twisted way, it worked. The most commonly discussed parasite was the beef tapeworm, known scientifically as Taenia saginata. Humans could become infected by consuming contaminated, undercooked, beef-containing larvae. Once inside the intestine, the parasite attached itself to the intestinal wall and began to grow segment by segment, absorbing nutrients directly from the host's body. The result could be dramatic weight loss, but what advertisements conveniently ignored was that the parasite was not selectively removing fat, it was stealing everything. Iron, vitamin B12, nutrients critical for the nervous system, energy reserves the brain depended on. Victims often developed severe fatigue, anemia, dizziness, digestive problems, and chronic weakness. Some experienced terrifying abdominal pain. Others suffered psychological distress after discovering pieces of the worm in their clothing or bed sheets. And sometimes, the parasite did not stay where it was supposed to. By the early 1900s, doctors were documenting increasingly disturbing cases involving parasitic infections. In rare circumstances, certain tapeworm species could migrate beyond the intestines and form cysts in organs or tissue. Even though beef tapeworms were generally less invasive than pork tapeworms, public fear grew as newspapers sensationalized horrifying medical stories. One newspaper article from the era described a woman who allegedly became dangerously ill after pursuing parasite-based weight loss treatments. Other reports spoke of patients collapsing from malnutrition while desperately trying to maintain fashionable body shapes. But the public fascination only intensified, because underneath the horror was something psychologically irresistible: the fantasy of effortless transformation. Eat whatever you want, stay thin forever, no sacrifice required. Even today, that promise still dominates billion-dollar industries. And perhaps that is why the tapeworm story feels so modern. In 1912, another tragedy shocked the world of beauty and dieting. A young woman named Eloise Werle died after taking diet pills containing dangerous thyroid extracts. Similar cases appeared across Europe and America throughout the early 20th century. Some people permanently damaged their hearts. Others developed severe hormonal disorders. Yet despite mounting medical warnings, the culture continued rewarding thinness at almost any cost. The timing mattered. The 1920s arrived like an explosion. Jazz clubs, cinema, mass advertising, urban nightlife. For the first time in history, millions of ordinary people constantly compared themselves to images of celebrities and models. The flapper era celebrated slim figures, flat chests, and youthful appearances. Corsets disappeared, but the pressure did not. It simply evolved, and now technology amplified it. Magazines showed impossible silhouettes. Film stars became international beauty standards. Entire industries emerged around bodily insecurity. Soap companies, cosmetic brands, fashion houses, and pharmaceutical businesses all discovered the same terrifying truth. Insecurity could be monetized endlessly. The tapeworm became part of that machinery. Some historians believe many famous tapeworm pills were likely fraudulent and contained laxatives rather than actual parasite eggs. But oddly, that does not make the story less disturbing. It may make it worse. Because even fake tapeworm products succeeded by convincing customers that hosting a parasite sounded reasonable compared to gaining weight. Think about that for a moment. Society had created a beauty standard, so psychologically powerful that people considered becoming a living feeding ground for worms preferable to looking larger, and doctors were horrified. Medical publications from the early 20th century repeatedly warned against intentional parasitic infection. Physicians described patients suffering chronic malnutrition, digestive disorders, and long-term complications. Removing large tapeworms was itself traumatic. Treatments could involve toxic chemicals designed to kill the parasite inside the body, followed by painful purging methods. Sometimes the worm survived. Sometimes pieces remained attached internally and continued growing. There were even bizarre reports of people panicking after unsuccessful removal attempts, terrified that something still lived inside them. But fear alone could not stop the trend because the real engine driving it was cultural shame. Women especially faced immense pressure. By the 1930s, Hollywood studios reportedly monitored actresses' weights obsessively. Some contracts allegedly contained clauses related to appearance. Stars survived on cigarettes, black coffee, grapefruit diets, and starvation regimens to remain camera-ready. And ordinary people watched all of it unfold. What makes this history so unsettling is not simply the parasite itself. Humanity has always used dangerous medicine. The deeper horror is how ordinary the logic became. If beauty equals worth and thinness equals beauty, then almost any risk can begin to sound rational. That psychological mechanism never disappeared. Decades later, the world would see amphetamine diet pills in the 1950s, extreme crash diets in the 1970s, heroin-chic beauty standards in the 1990s, and dangerous online starvation communities in the early internet era. Every generation creates new methods, but the emotional core stays hauntingly familiar. The body becomes a battlefield, and profit waits nearby. Even today, rumors about modern tapeworm diets still circulate online. Health authorities around the world have repeatedly warned people against intentional parasitic infection. Medical experts emphasize that tapeworms can cause severe complications, including intestinal obstruction, nutritional deficiency, and neurological problems depending on the species involved. Yet the myth refuses to die completely. Because somewhere deep inside modern culture, the fantasy still survives, effortless perfection. And history shows how dangerous that fantasy can become. One of the strangest details about tapeworm infections is how quiet they often are at first. Many people initially experience few symptoms. The parasite grows silently, invisibly, feeding gradually, day after day. In many ways, the social pressure surrounding beauty works the same way. It enters quietly through advertisements, films, comments, mirrors, algorithms. Over time, it consumes more than appearance. It eats confidence, identity, self-worth. Entire lives can begin revolving around numbers on a scale. And that is why the tapeworm story feels bigger than a bizarre historical curiosity. It exposes something uncomfortable about modern civilization itself. At the height of the Industrial Revolution, humanity mastered steel, electricity, mass communication, and modern medicine. Yet at the exact same time, thousands of people became vulnerable to an idea so irrational that it sounds almost fictional today, willingly swallowing parasites to become beautiful. Not because they were foolish, because they were afraid. Afraid of judgment, afraid of exclusion, afraid of becoming invisible in a society increasingly obsessed with image. And maybe the most chilling part of all is this: the people selling these products understood that fear perfectly. They wrapped it in glamorous packaging, turned it into aspiration, and made consumers believe the danger was their own choice. More than a century later, the advertisements have changed. The technology has changed. Social media replaced newspaper sketches. Influencers replaced silent film stars. But the machinery behind the insecurity remains astonishingly familiar. That is why the story of the tapeworm diet still matters. Because history is not always buried in ancient wars or forgotten kings. Sometimes it hides inside advertisements, inside beauty trends, inside the quiet desperation of ordinary. People trying to become acceptable in the eyes of strangers. And somewhere, in a dusty newspaper archive from the early 1900s, a smiling woman still promises readers they can eat anything they want and remain perfectly thin forever. All it costs is letting something else live inside you.